This is the Digitally Remastered Network.
Yes, sir. Reading you loud and clear. Clear. The clock has started.
The clock has started.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Lift off.
Greetings, gameheads of the United States of America, planet Earth, and the known universe. This is Eli The Gameguy. I am your host, Eli Williams, and this week we're doing a top 10 of my all-time favorite arcade games. It is on like Tron, folks. Let's blow it up. Greetings, gameheads. Once again, you are here with Eli Williams on Eli The Gameguy. We are switching it up this week a little bit. Gonna do the first in a series of top 10 video game lists that I have planned out, starting with this one, my top 10 all-time favorite arcade games. Starting with number 10, Qbert, ladies and gentlemen, was brought to us into the North American market by the Gottlieb Corporation in 1982. As you can see, it was a 2D action platform game. You would jump up and down on these blocks, change the color of them, and once you cleared all the blocks, it advanced you to the next level. Your object was to avoid the bouncy snakes, bouncy balls, and the little discs on the side, little rainbow discs that are spinning you see there. You would jump on those and they would take you back up to the top to avoid danger if you needed them. Further you advanced through the levels, the more difficult it got, the faster it got, the more enemies appeared on the board. This game was at the local mall in the arcade named Galaxy, which I have fond memories of. This game sat in the back left corner of the arcade, if I remember correctly. Galaxy, as most arcades, are disappearing, but Galaxy, we do miss you. Number 9, Dig Dug. People remember Dig Dug. It was a maze arcade game, and it was developed and released by Namco in 1982. A lot of people probably are familiar with this game. Essentially, you were Dig Dug, and you were this little guy, and you dug tunnels, and you had, essentially, it was like a bike pump is what it was, but you would dig these tunnels, and your object was to destroy all the creatures in the game, the little red ball goggle guys and the little dragons, and you tried to either pump them up and pop them, or you would lure them under a rock and crush them. Once you took them all out, you advanced to the next level, and obviously, like most games, it got exceedingly harder. There you go right there. There's a crush. You got 2. The Rygars and the Puyas, the 2 characters, could turn invisible and move throughout the board to try to get you into the tunnels you were creating. This game sat in Galaxy in the back right-hand corner. It was right next to Gauntlet 2 at the Galaxy Arcade. Galaxy, I truly miss you. Number 8, Galaga. Everybody knows Galaga. Galaga was out in 1981. It was a fixed shooter arcade game developed and published by, again, Namco. Those who remember Galaga would remember it's similar to Space Invaders, but the guys would come in from the side, you'd shoot them, you'd clear a board, but the ones up at the top, those birds, once you shot them once and they were blue, like that one you see there, they would come down, they would take your ship, and if you got your ship back, you were double barrel. You had 2 ships, and you could just wreck everything. I remember this game. This game sat across from Qbert in the middle of the arcade back on the left side at Galaxy. Number 7, Donkey Kong. Yes. Oh boy, it's Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong was released by Nintendo in 1981. And this is the birth of Mario. This is where he came from, folks. So the younger generation that don't know, this is where he came from. Donkey Kong was essentially a game where you were Mario and you climbed up the ladders, jumped over barrels, you would grab the hammer to smash barrels, you avoided the fireballs. And once you got to the top, you rescued the princess, or, well, not the princess, it was just a lady. And you advanced to the next level. There were, I believe, 4 levels that you had to complete. As you can see here, you advanced upwards. Donkey Kong was at the local Dairy Queen, which was great because when I got to go to Dairy Queen, you got Dairy Queen and you got Donkey Kong. How could you go wrong? Number 6, Tempest. For those who remember Tempest, Tempest rocked. Tempest was brought to us in 1981 by the Atari Corporation. Tempest was one of the first vector games, I believe. And essentially, like you see here, there were different shaped tubes, and you were this little arc, and you shot the things, and once you cleared all of them out, you advanced to the next one. You also had a super zapper. That if it got a little hairy, you could just like blast everything on the board. Tempest actually had a level select. You could select your difficulty at the beginning of the game, which most games did not do that. I remember Tempest was at the back right of the arcade in the mall, Galaxy. And Tempest, if I remember correctly, Tempest was right to the left of Gauntlet 2. And I spent a lot of tokens playing Tempest in the good old Galaxy arcade. They really do need to bring back the arcades. Number 5, Star Trek, the arcade game, also known as Star Trek Strategic Operations Simulator. It was a space simulation game brought to us by Sega in 1983. If you wanted to play Star Trek, this was it until a few things came out for home computers, which home computers at this time weren't really much of anything. I mean, Commodore 64, the Atari 2600 had a port of this game, and Apple II, they didn't compare to this. This game actually had 2 versions. It had a stand-up and a sit-down. The stand-up was in the Galaxy Arcade over on the left-hand wall. I got the opportunity to play a sit-down one, which actually had a captain's chair with controls on it, at the Kings Island in Cincinnati, Ohio. Just an amazing, amazing game. It was so much fun because you had the 2-level screens. You had a 2D and a 3D screen right there in front of you. Number 4, Star Wars. Oh my God, Star Wars. Star Wars is an arcade game produced by Mike Halley and Atari in 1983. This game essentially took you through the fight at the Death Star. Assault on the Death Star. You started out in space like you see here. You shot TIE fighters. They would blow up. Occasionally you would see Darth Vader's TIE advanced, and you could hit it and you get bonus points, but you couldn't destroy it. You advance from this level to directly to the trench run, and then in the second round, after you blew up the Death Star, you would fly across the surface and hit the towers, and then advance to what you see here, the trench run. Star Wars was at Galaxy, and it was the first game you saw when you walked in the door. It was right there. Boom. And there was a sit-down version of this game as well. I never found it, never got the opportunity to play the sit-down enclosure game. But this game, oh man, lots of time. Number 3, Super PacMan. It was the 4th title in the PacMan series of games released in North America in 1982. But it was technically the sequel to PacMan because it was the only game that came out after PacMan that actually had PacMan in it. What you did was there were two types of power pellets, as you see. There was a power pellet and a super power pellet. The super power pellet, when you hit that, you could roll right over the ghosts. And as you'll see coming up here, if you knew the pattern, you could hit that green power pellet and clear half the board when you knew the pattern. And you'll see this guy kind of does it. You could roll this up, you go up, you turn left, you go up like that, and if you could clear this out and hit that other green power pellet, you could roll this over again and again and again and again and again. And I could play this almost indefinitely. I held the high score on this game at Galaxy for a long, long time. But when a lot of people eventually figured out the pattern, you know, they got the high score too. This game sat directly behind Star Wars at the Galaxy Arcade. This is a game that I do hope someday I will own one. Number 2, Dragon's Lair. Let me tell you about this game. This game came out in 1983 by Cinematronics Corporation. It was created by Rick Dyer and Don Bluth, the man who was behind a lot of the animation for like All Dogs Go to Heaven, The Secret of Nim. You recognize Land Before Time. You recognize this guy's animation. This game was done on Laserdisc. It was huge when it came out. Essentially, you were Dirk the Daring, and you fought your way through the castle. The whole basis of the game, there was a joystick and a sword button. It was up, down, left, right, or sword, and you needed to know the combination of movements when you, like that, when you just press forward. Boom, you're through the wall. This game was huge. It sat in the back left-hand corner of the Galaxy Arcade. If you were lucky enough to get there before anybody else, you could play it. But when this game came out, it was so big, they actually had a TV screen up on top of the game so you could watch people play because there were so many people gathered around the machine. You had to get in a line and line your quarters up on the screens, or your tokens rather, to get into this game. There was a lot of ports to this game to different gaming systems, home computer gaming systems, that never really stood up to what this was. However, there is a Blu-ray version of this game out there that is pristine looking, and you can play it using your remote control for your Blu-ray player. Go get it, play it, it's great. And my number 1 all-time favorite arcade game is Tron. Tron came out in 1982 from the Bally Midway Company and Walt Disney Productions. It had 4 sub-games that you would go to. You had the different aspects of the movie that you could play through. Like you see here, the battle tanks, light cycles, MCP cone, and the I.O. tower. The I.O. tower and the MCP cone you actually played as Tron. The light cycles and the battle tanks you played as a light cycle or a battle tank. This game had a unique controller system. It had a joystick with a trigger and a wheel. The game looked just amazing. If you can, just Google an image of what this game looked like. It was backlit. It had black lighting in it. The game glowed. When you saw this game, it just glowed. I held the high score on this game at Galaxy until the day they closed. This game sat to the very left of the office door at Galaxy Arcade and to the right of Star Trek. I have vowed to one day find one of these, purchase it, and have it for my own. Well, that pretty much wraps up my top 10 list of my all-time favorite arcade games. When I say my all-time favorite, I do mean my all-time favorite. I realize there's probably ones on here that you would have put in your top 10, and I probably would have had them on mine too, because I'm going to be honest with you, this was a hard list to make. But I chose the best out of the 10. Tron was always going to be number 1, and Dragon's Lair was always going to be number 2, and Star Trek and Star Wars were always going to be 2 and 3. But I had to pick and choose. Thank you guys for stopping in, hanging out. You have been watching Eli the Game Guy with me, your host, Eli Williams. Please remember to comment, like, subscribe, or smash that bell so you can get information on all the good things coming out of the Digitally Remastered Network. I hope you guys have a great day and a great week. I will see you next time, and until then, I hope you get the high score, and hopefully it will be at your local arcade. See you next time, guys. Greetings, Gameheads. The Digitally Remastered Network and I would like to thank you for tuning in today. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, and click that bell so you can get information on all the good things the DRN has to offer. You've been watching Eli the Game Guy. I've been your host, Eli Williams. Come and join us again, and until then, I hope you get the high score. This has been a DRN production.